When looking for animes this past week, I wanted to pick up something that I'd never seen before, but also something that didn't have that great of a reception from the side of the anime world. During the search, I had found The Master of Ragnarok and The Blesser of Valkyria. Memories came back to light because I remembered only ever hearing people say bad things about it, so I decided to give it a shot and see if it was really that bad. The series follows Yuto Suo, a guy who got isekai'd when taking a selfie with a mirror. Interestingly enough, the show doesn't tell you all this. It just shows it happening in the opening of the anime and it never details why he's there. With this, the series skips past showing the main character's rise to power and starts off showing him in a ruling position as a clan patriarch. While the first episode isn't all that exciting, it lays out all you need to know about the world without being an info dump. It shows that this isekai is a lot different from the ones that you're probably used to. This one isn't your typical setting of the medieval fantasy world combined with elements similar to game worlds just to easily put in monsters and dragons. Most of the anime takes place in sandy, desert-like environments. This change in scenery brings about a refreshing change to what you're used to within isekais, and the anime also focuses a pretty good deal on building its world. This world that they live in is based around warrior clans that fight to overtake and absorb the loser, or just kill them off. Those that aren't destroyed have the option to join the winning clan if they're deemed good enough and enter into a life of servitude towards their ruler. This anime sets up this by offering people to enter an oath to become the main character's brother or sister, or forgo some freedoms to pledge servitude as his child. The former isn't offered as much and shows that it is some sort of honor for the more trustworthy, while the latter seems to be used for the strong but not quite trustworthy. Past these nice little touches to give its world some more life, there is a small bit of disappointment within the writing of the anime's plot. For much of the anime, it focuses a bit too much on building the world that the actual plot of the anime seems to take the back seat, making it feel like a subplot when it actually rears its head. If they would have shown Yuto's rise to power instead of starting the anime with him being a ruler already, it would have made the plot feel more important than what it actually does. Within its episodes, you only see small snippets from his rise that affect him and his subordinates on a greater scale, but because of this choice, it lacks an impact for what the plot is actually trying to do. However, there was one great benefit to how this was handled, and that was how they seamlessly talk about Norse mythology because of how important that is towards the greater plot of the series. It's a really cool touch that takes an interesting turn on events that are loosely based around the mythos, and seeing that in action is one of my favorite things about this anime. A nice deviation from your usual isekai is that Yuto believes that he didn't get transported to another world, but to that of a past long before modern civilization. The battles that he gets involved with throughout the series are solved from a combination of knowledge he learned in school and through looking up battle tactics through his somehow working smartphone. While the battles within the anime aren't the best in their execution, they make for something interesting since they rely on manpower more than the sheer luck from magical individuals. The series does contain something similar, but these people, called the Inheriar, are only used when absolutely necessary within these battles. So it gives it a bit more of a nicer feeling to what you'd usually be seeing in other series. The Master of Ragnarok, contrary to what I've heard, got increasingly better as it went on, even when I noticed the parts that I didn't like as much. It has a really interesting change towards the end of the anime, and its ending left me wanting to see more. Yuto Suo is among one of the best isekai main characters I've seen. While it skips how he was isekai'd and you don't really get a feel of what his original personality was like 2 or 3 years ago, from the first moment he steps on the screen, he's brimming with confidence and has a degree of humanity that you don't typically see within this genre. Him being in this leadership position gives him all sorts of stressful feelings, and you can feel the weight of his position bearing down on him. I've heard negative talks about this anime since the day it came out, and I'm still confused as to why this was dumped on so hard. I've heard things like it's generic or predictable, but after having watched the anime, it's really not any of those things. It may be a harem in an isekai series, but Yuto doesn't even follow the same structure as the typical protagonist from either of those. He's always mindful of the girl's feelings around him, but he doesn't have an interest in them at all because he only has eyes for his childhood friend who he was separated from when all this began. He's not very powerful and he's not even all that smart. He even admits that he's cheated to get to his position because of how much he uses his smartphone for the basis of all of his tactics. The only similarities that he has to either of these kinds of protagonists is that he's kind to a fault in that he shares normal teenage reactions to things. Everything else about him is completely different from a generic protagonist, so I feel it's very disingenuous to say that this series is generic. Even when you boil it down to the very basic points of the series, it doesn't add up to be anything generic. Its setting is different, the characters might not be well-rounded, but each of them has a distinct personality that makes them feel alive, and the world that is around them could work without needing the main character to be there. The Master of Ragnarok was a welcome surprise for me, and another anime that serves as a reason to not take popular opinion at face value. For my next video, I'm going to be jumping onto an anime that has been airing for the past while. It had a risky start, but it has been exceeding any expectations I originally had with it. Keep an eye out for a video around the end of this summer anime season. We're going to be talking about Arifureta.